So we have another exciting program for you. It's going to be informative. We are honored to have J. Clark Mica. Yes, he is related to the Mica father son. He's the nephew of David Sr. He's our lecture speaker today, and he is the president of the Institute of Makers of Explosives with an impressive and extensive background in both the public and private sectors. We look forward to his shared insights today. Clark will be formally introduced by our club vice president, Christopher Emmanuel, in just a few moments. In addition to today's speaker, we have scheduled guest speakers for the remainder of the year, including Michael Heaton, CEO of Pressburg and founding COO and board member for WebMD. He will be with us on July 23rd. Lee White, president of L.M. White Consulting, will be with us on August 6th. On September 24th, Jessica Harvey, CEO of the Guy Harvey Foundation, will be our lecture speaker. Meredith Berger, Assistant Secretary of the Navy, will be with us in October. And John Colin, CEO of Margaritaville Holdings, will be with us in November. More details are on our website, and you won't want to miss any of these programs. Our Economic Club of Florida sponsors are a very important part of our club's success. Today, we want to thank the Owsley firm for being our luncheon speaker. I would like to invite Dylan Rivers to the podium and briefly share about Owsley, and he will be more formally introduced in just a few moments as well. Dylan? And I've known Dylan. Dylan, who what I know? Mica.
Expired date.
No, okay. That's making me too old. Were you getting ready to go to college for a minute? Okay, never mind. What I thought. I'm getting old with the really.
Thank you, everyone. I know you're not here to hear from me, but Owsley appreciates the opportunity to sponsor the Economic Club and bring interesting and informative speakers to Tallahassee, including Mr. Mica. The firm, as most of you I hope know, has been a mainstay in Tallahassee and the legal community throughout Florida. Here to help you with any needs you might have, and appreciate the opportunity for the sponsorship.
Thank you, Dylan and the Owsley firm, for your support. For those of you in attendance today, if you or your company would like to serve as a sponsor to one of our luncheons, please see me or any of our board members. I would now like to recognize our trustee members. Our trustee members provide additional financial support to the club each year. In return, our trustees receive exclusive benefits, such as attending pre-luncheon receptions with our speakers and having an opportunity to speak with them in a small group setting. Our trustee members are also invited to other local events which we host from time to time. If you are a trustee, thank you, and please stand to be recognized. So our club administrator tells me that we have quite a few guests today. We want to welcome each of you here to our luncheon. And we're going to ask that all guests stand and be introduced. And just hold on the applause to everyone who's been introduced. I'll start at this table. Kyle.
I got two Baldwins, Justin Hill here, and we have the son of that.
Thank you. Barney, anybody new it? Any guests at your table? The table? The back? Yes, go ahead, Sen. Welcome. Glenn, anybody at your table? Mike, Ellis, anybody at your table? Any guests? No. Marion?
Julia Holly. She is with City Clubs, which is the business shoes like, and they are Viva. So it's nice of it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I'm very large slip, and I have a real estate broker. I have a large funds like that. I just probably. And that's just nice. And the enough about tenure. I did my brother apples.
Awesome. Heidi, anybody new at your table? Any guests? This table? Yeah. Right there? Bobby?
Thank you, Madam President. I have two people with me today. Never take care of just Mike to talk about blowing things up. It's along for our Vegan agency 6-month card. And about my son, Frank Macon, he's an IT consultant with agency in the college.
Welcome. Don Harris, anybody at your table? Larry, anybody at your table? Over here? Thank you.
Like in these, in Mayor City, kind of retired, full products, yeah, pilot recently moved to Tallahassee.
Awesome. Let's get a round of applause. Oh, I'm sorry. What? Not yeah. I'll straight up. Wait, one more.
For Tom Wolcott, our it's on the Conyers toward the Kmart Bowl. It's the Frotzy Commander at MIT.
Awesome. Did I miss anybody else? Awesome. So to all of our guests, we hope you will consider becoming a member of the club. Information about membership is found on the table outside the door and also on our website. So now I'd like to introduce the head table. And I'm going to start with Dylan Rivers, who you heard from. He is a shareholder with Osley, and his practice focus areas are commercial and administrative litigation. Christopher Emanuel. Christopher is the Director of Government Relations for the University of Florida, and he's also our club vice president. In his role at UF, he is responsible for state-level legislative and executive branch advocacy, working to ensure that the university's interests are effectively represented and advanced within the halls of state government. Christopher earned his undergraduate degree from the University of Florida and his law degree from FSU. Josh. Josh is a partner at Manasseh Shaw Manasseh PA, where he specializes in commercial litigation and real estate transactions. Josh is a proud member of Leadership Tallahassee's Class 38 and has been recognized as a Tallahassee Network of Young Professionals 2022 Golden Ace, aka Tallahassee's Top 20 Under 40. He currently serves as director for the Tallahassee Bar Association's Young Lawyers section and enjoys having the opportunity to get to know law students and legal professionals. Ida Thompson. Ida has been in Tallahassee for 25 years and is the Director of Advancement for Holy Comforter Episcopal School, where she dedicates her expertise and passion for fostering growth and success. With a wealth of experience in development and fundraising, Ida has held key positions at various esteemed organizations. Prior to her current role, she served as a major gift officer at TMH Foundation, and most recently as the Director of Development of FSU's College of Health and Human Sciences. Combining her love for the arts with a strong foundation in business, Ida holds a BA in classical music, specializing in clarinet, with a minor in business from FSU. Let's give a round of applause for our head table. And at this time, I now invite Christopher Emanuel to introduce our speaker, Clark Mica.
Good afternoon. It's my honor to introduce Clark Mica to the Economic Club of Florida. Clark serves as the president of the Institute of Makers of Explosives, the business association that's responsible for advocating for some of the largest commercial and just very fascinating explosive companies in the country. He's got a fascinating history that goes back to appointments in the W. Bush administration, deep Florida connections through the Mica family that we've already discussed, and a great understanding of Florida's economy through various roles in the fertilizer industry and in housing and urban development. We're very excited to hear not only about his background, but about the industry itself that relies and establishes and pushes so many important and essential commodities. I think we're going to hear a lot about the oil and gas industry, about the agricultural industry. We'll maybe even hear a little bit about space. And I think everyone's going to walk away with a greater appreciation for the manufacturers of these important products that the 21st century has been built on. Clark, thank you.
Have you ever thought about how explosives impact your daily life? Imagine a world where products could not be delivered to your home the day after you ordered them online, or within a week or two.
Imagine those products costing multiple times more than they do today. Imagine those products or services that provide a huge convenience to your life without a bit.
Yeah. Like a car, refrigerator, cell phone, hair dryer, or whether electricity to run them was not available 24/7, or it's just too expensive to afford.
Imagine that almost every product you touch, either or come in contact with must be made possible. Explosives are likely involved in making their advantage.
Explosives play a key role in every aspect of our lives. Oil for the energy we use, metal for that car you drive, minerals for those products and medicines we consume are all made possible because of explosives and the explosives innovations that have occurred in the past 200 years.
Now imagine what the life would be like without the vast interconnecting batteries and infrastructure that keep us connected in a world with limited copper wire teaching our homes to the power grid. And the world is beyond today.
Has been made possible by explosives.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Chris, for the kind introduction. And thank you to Lizette and the entire team here at the Economic Club of Florida and you, the members, for having me. It really is an honor for me to be back in my home state, here in our state capital in Tallahassee, to speak with you today. So I am Clark Mica. Yes, I am one of the Micas. For those of you who know Dave, he is my uncle, and Dave Jr. is my cousin. So it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Of course, they thought so highly of this presentation that they left town. Typical Micas. So, but I am truly honored to be here with you. I like to say I have the privilege of having one of the best titles in all of Washington, D.C. You can be a congressman, you can be a senator, you can be a president or vice president, but there's only one president of the Institute of Makers of Explosives. So today I'm going to give you a brief history about commercial explosives and highlight the essential role that our industry plays, not just in growing the economies of Florida and the United States, but in truly making today's modern society possible. Before we do that, a little bit about the Institute of Makers of Explosives, or IME as we call it. So IME is the trusted voice of the commercial explosives industry. Our members include manufacturers, distributors, and users of commercial explosives. So much to the disappointment of probably many of you in the room and my uncle as well, we do not do defense or fireworks. We are the think big mining operations, oil and gas, quarrying, aggregates, again, all the things that you need to have a modern society. So last year, IME celebrated our 110th anniversary. Pretty incredible. We were founded in 1913 at the direction of the federal government, who at the time, and understandably so, said, you guys are having way too many accidents, there's too many deaths, and you need to come together and create an organization that develops best practices for your industry. So we did that in 1913, and the first best practice, which are now called safety library publications, is called the American Table of Distances. So when you're storing commercial explosives, and the military actually uses this, you guys are probably familiar with the American Table of Distances. That was actually established by the Institute of Makers of Explosives back in 1913. So long history of safety and security in the industry. While our organization is in fact 110 years old, our mission remains the same. It is to promote the safe and secure manufacture, transport, distribution, and use of commercial explosives. And like other trade associations, we advocate on public policy issues. We provide technical expertise to our membership. We also develop educational tools and resources like those safety library publications that actually several of those have been adopted into federal regulation. So that just shows, I think, the depth and technical knowledge of and the quality of those materials that we're producing. We're also the voice of the commercial explosives industry. So we communicate with the public, we communicate with the media. As you can imagine, and when we go through this presentation a little bit further, our industry is incredibly technical. It's very complicated. So to be able to break down the good work that our men and women in our industry are doing, we have to serve as that communication outlet. And then last but not least, we also collect and disseminate industry data and statistics. We'll talk about the economic impact study we just completed, but we also collect tonnage. So our industry reports tonnage to our association, and then we provide that to the United States Geological Service, So you or anyone in the general public can go on their website and see how many tons of commercial explosives are consumed each year, and I would add safely and securely. So in terms of public policy, our issues are quite broad. A lot of things that people don't typically think about when you think of explosives, right? So first and foremost, safety and security. Those are paramount to what we do day in and day out. The safety and security of our employees and the communities in which our members operate is absolutely essential. We all hear about the social license to operate, and we see that as, again, being critical. So we have to make sure that our operations are safe and secure. Supply chain. Supply chain is an interesting issue. So there are all types of explosives out there, high explosives, low explosives, and we are challenged right now with getting access to high explosives, in particular TNT, HMX, and RDX. I see heads nodding. Any of you that were in the military know what these are. Unfortunately, we don't manufacture any TNT in the United States anymore. That not only puts the commercial industry at a competitive disadvantage, it puts our military at a national security risk. We're reliant completely on imports of TNT. HMX and RDX are two other high explosives that we use primarily in the oil and gas industry, but a little bit in the commercial side as well. And there is one plant in the United States that manufactures that, right? So think about military, commercial industry relying on one plant for one high explosive and completely import for the others. So it's not a great situation, but it's something that, again, we're in DC to advocate for, to make sure that those things are addressed. Transportation and infrastructure, both moving product, making sure that we have the right regulations in place to move explosives safely. And on infrastructure, it's advocating for those dollars to actually go towards infrastructure projects. Think about all the repaving that's going on. Think about new roads that need to be built to accommodate all the new people that have moved to Florida. Well, those aggregates, that limestone, that material has to come from somewhere, and it starts with explosives. Energy and environment, again, we play a critical role in the oil and gas industry, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But we want to make sure we're advocating for balanced energy policies, right? It's not an either or, it's all of the above. We're also still heavily engaged in coal mining. That continues to trend downward, but I think if we've seen the situation in Europe in the last couple of years, where their natural gas supplies have been cut off at one time or another, who would have thought that Germany would be restarting coal-fired power plants? There are a couple things you need to have a modern society or a successful society, and that's energy, water, and food, right? Moving down workforce, this isn't really unique to our industry, except for the fact that to handle or possess commercial explosives in the United States, you have to have a background check conducted by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Never forget the E at the end of ATF. They always leave it off. But so that puts us in a whole different level, right? We're trying to find laborers out there to work, and they're not fun jobs. It's hard work. It's early mornings, it's late nights, it's heavy equipment, it's dirty. But in addition to that, you have to have a background check. So we have quite a challenge in finding qualified workers there. And then innovation is of course always a priority, finding safer, more effective, more efficient sources of commercial explosives. So that's a little bit about IME. How many of y'all recognize this picture? Yeah. Okay. Well, how many of you think this is what the commercial explosives industry looks like today? I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that in fact is not what the commercial explosives industry looks like. In fact, the plunger, that's what the machine's called that Mr. Wile E. Coyote is pushing down on, those are pretty much used for photo ops. Now, most of our work is done either at the click of a mouse or the press of a button on an electronic board. So again, sorry to disappoint you, but that's just not today's industry. So before we get into today's industry, I want to give you a little, hopefully brief background about our history and how we came to be where we are today. So you may recognize the gentleman up here on the right, probably not the one on the left, but that is in fact a Swedish chemist by the name of Alfred Nobel. Yes, that Alfred Nobel, who invented dynamite in 1866. Having lost a brother in an incident involving nitroglycerin, which was used prior to that, and a fairly unstable product in certain environments, Nobel made it his life's mission to develop a more stable explosive product that could easily and safely be transported, stored, and used. Patented in 1867, Nobel's invention of dynamite forever changed the modern world. The gentleman on the left was a German chemist named Joseph Wilbrand. He's credited with discovering TNT in 1863. So when I said TNT and dynamite, they're completely different products. They're very commonly confused to be the same thing. They're actually different products discovered at different times. So the use of TNT didn't really take hold until the 1900s. So think early World War I-ish. And while dynamite was truly a game changer in terms of a modern society, the use of dynamite as a weapon forever haunted Nobel. In fact, it haunted him so much that he decided to leave his fortunes made from the sale of dynamite behind to endow what we today know as the Nobel Prizes. And that is in fact why there is a Nobel Peace Prize as one of those. So in terms of creating a modern society, dynamite was absolutely instrumental in clearing the path to build the Transcontinental Railroad. That's the picture here on the right. Imagine the opportunities that made available, again, thanks to explosives. Picture on the right here is of Mount Rushmore. So Mount Rushmore took 14 years to complete. In fact, it was completed in, I believe, October 1941, just before the start, or just before the attack at Pearl Harbor on December 6th. So again, 14 years to complete. They hadn't planned to use dynamite. They were originally using kind of a chisel and carving method that, could you imagine how long that would have taken? So the structure again was blasted with dynamite. 14 years, not a single worker lost their life in that project. Absolutely incredible. Again, thanks to the invention of dynamite, safer, more stable, and able to use it in these types of situations. And if you ever go out there, has anyone been to Mount Rushmore? Yeah. Have you been to the museum? They don't help our cause because they actually have a plunger in there that you can push to demonstrate the blasting. It's a really well done museum if you ever have a chance to go see it. So closer to home, some of you may recognize this. I actually labeled it so you have to know what it is. But dynamite was used to clear the path for construction of the transformational Flagler Railroad. In fact, if you drive down A1A, just south of Key Largo, if you have Google Maps on, you'll see a little dot on the map called Dynamite Docks. That was where they imported the dynamite by a ship to continue blasting all the way down to Key West. So kind of a fun historical fact about commercial explosives in Florida. So while dynamite and TNT were both safer and more stable than nitroglycerin, industry is always looking to innovate towards the development of newer and safer products. So this gentleman here is an American chemist by the name of Melvin Cook. In 1956, he discovered what are called slurry explosives, which involve mixing ammonium nitrate with aluminum powder and fuel oil, also known as ANFO. And unfortunately, you've heard ANFO in bad terms, but it is also a very safe and effective commercial explosive. So the discovery of slurries and eventually ammonium nitrate emulsions, which are also used today, the stability of these products is such that ammonium nitrate emulsions can be, there are tests out there that can be shot at with a 50 caliber rifle from within 200 yards and it won't detonate. And it's just incredible that the safety and the technology and the innovation that has taken place in our industry over the years, thanks to this gentleman here and his foresight into creating better products. Today, approximately 85% of all commercial explosives consumed in the United States are ammonium nitrate based. In contrast, there's only one remaining dynamite plant in all of North America. And I mentioned earlier that we don't actually manufacture any TNT. So that brings us to today's industry, which involves manufacturers, distributors, and users of commercial explosives. So the users, we call them blasters. You'll hear me refer to blasting or blasters. The actual people that are doing the blasts are referred to as blasters. So as noted, today's products are far safer and much more stable than those used in the past. Here's a quick look through some of the common products that we use. So this is a detonator connected to an electric wire that goes into a system. You can hook hundreds of these up at a time and set them off within milliseconds of one another, depending on the shot. And these are just a different type of detonators, but you can see the innovation over time from what we call a non-electric or shock tube, all the way up to electronic and now wireless. So that, again, that innovation continues throughout time, safer, faster, more efficient ways of getting more material out of the ground using less product. So here you'll see the yellow bag there that's what ANFO looks like. That's ammonium nitrate fuel oil. It's usually a pink color. It's a little prilled. And you can pick it up in your hand. It won't actually hurt you. And then we call those chubs, the plastic tubes. They actually use sausage casing machines to make these. That's fascinating when you go out and see the plants. But these are what are commonly used in mining operations and quarries. Then here we see boosters. So again, I mentioned that product, the ANFO, the ammonium nitrate emulsions, are very stable. And you have to sensitize them. And then in order to even get them to detonate, you have to have a booster. And I'm not telling you anything you can't read online, so don't think I'm giving any secrets out. Then here we have detonating corn. So this material, it looks like your speaker wire. Right? It's wrapped in cord. Except on the inside, it has high explosive, usually PTN, and that cord can detonate at a speed of over 5,000 feet per second. So think about that. Pretty incredible. These tubes here are kind of interesting. So these are used to measure seismic activity, primarily in the oil and gas industry. So if you're going out and you're getting ready to, drill down a well, you want to measure the activity within the earth there. They actually use explosives to do that. These here are what are called shape charges. The longer ones are called linear shape charges. The round is also linear. These are used. Did everyone see the unfortunate incident that occurred in Baltimore? The ship hit the bridge. So that was actually linear shaped charges were placed at particular spaces on this bridge to get it off of the ship. If you saw what happened, it was incredible. The roadway was still laid across the top of the boat, but they couldn't move it. So they had to get this off the ship to be able to refloat the vessel and reopen Baltimore, which is one of the largest ports on all of the East Coast. So closer to home here in Florida, linear shape charges are also used on many of the rockets that you see launched from Cape Canaveral. And in the old days, and current too, if there is more than one rocket, now SpaceX goes up and comes down, right? But the ones that have the boosters on the side, those boosters have to have a way to separate from the main rocket. And there are explosive bolts attached to that, so they can separate at the right time. And then in case of emergency, they actually have shape charges placed in specific places. So should something go wrong, they can actually detonate the rocket. That's commercial explosives as well. So we also use commercial explosives and shape charges for demolition, right? This is the old Bayway Bridge in St. Pete that was demolished, again, using linear charges. And then last but not least, this is a video of the DeVille, am I pronouncing this correctly, in Miami? DeVille Beach Resort, famous for hosting the Beatles when they would come to the United States. This building was taken down in 2022. To show you a quick clip. So just imagine the engineering that has to go into that. And not only knowing where to place these charges to get the building to fall the way you want it to, but to protect the surrounding areas. Now, this is Miami Beach. This is not the middle of nowhere. There are a lot of people around, a lot of buildings, a community, and the precision that is involved in getting this building or these buildings to fall that way is just absolutely incredible. Again, all made possible through the use of explosives. So here on the screen is another type of shaped charge. These are conical charges. So these charges are used in the oil and gas industry. And what you see here on the screen is a perforating gun. So you can see the charges. It's a steel tube. The charges are placed in, and then that blue wire is actually the detonating cord. And these charges, unlike you would think, actually detonate from the bottom out, right? So they're shooting, whether you see the copper color, they're shooting in that direction out. And that is in order to perforate the casing. So when you're drilling a oil and gas well, right, they drill down and then they'll put a steel tube or casing down within that well, thousands of feet below the Earth's surface. But in order to get from that casing out to the rock formation, you have to perforate that steel casing. And in some cases through the cement that's also around that. So think about, you are, miles underground. You've got this steel tube. Well, how the heck do you get out to the oil and gas reserves? You use perforating ones. And so they range anywhere from about 2 feet up to 20 feet. They're used both onshore and offshore operations. But I tell you this because how many of you guys, there's probably a few, but how many of you actually are familiar with this? I mean, think about where our energy comes from. Couple over here. We take so much for granted. And this is a great example of, again, the essential nature of commercial explosives and the value that we can bring to society. So once those guns are taken out again to the well, this is a wireline truck. They're attached to basically a thousands of foot long cable put down into that casing and again perforated. And they can do everything from 1 2-foot gun or a 20-foot gun to, one at a time. So if you have a strand of 40 guns, they can detonate them exactly where they want along the string. It's just an incredible, again, the engineering involved is amazing. And this is just a test of one. I think this was about probably a 6-foot gun. And that's actually buried in water. So you can imagine the force and the power there. But again, very precise. I mean, we're talking about, in some cases, less than an inch wide perforation that can go several inches deep into the rock formation. And that's not actually the fracking. Like that's just creating the ability to frack. So once that happens, these perforating guns are actually pulled out, and then they put the fluids in to create that upward flow of oil and gas. So it is quite an extensive process that, I think most people think you just put a drill in the ground and you hit gold and it starts flowing up. Couldn't be further from the truth. So moving on to where the bulk of explosives are used, which is mining and quarry. It's really pretty simple. Without commercial explosives, you don't have the aggregates and limestone to build the homes, roads, bridges, and other infrastructure, again, essential to modern society. Long before a blast is heard or felt, extensive planning and preparation by one or more blasting professionals occurs. In fact, the amount of preparation and engineering that goes into planning a blast is absolutely incredible. I recently visited a quarry outside of Washington, D.C. that provides a lot of the aggregates for the roads in the area. They told us it takes 7 days just to plan one shot. So think about that. You know, it's everything from site prep to drilling to ensuring that you've got all of the safety aspects put in place, notifying your neighbors, being a good steward. Just a lot of work that goes into that. In Florida, we're regulated by the State Fire Marshal's Office. State Fire Marshal, you have to be licensed. All blasts must be monitored by a seismologist and can only occur during daylight hours, Monday through Friday. So no blast, no fun on the weekends. Sorry. Only with special permission. So some of you, is anybody here from South Florida? Miramar? I know we've got some issues down there that we're working through. The state of Florida sets the limit at 0.5 inches per second for vibration. That is the equivalent to a train passing by your house. It'll rattle maybe for a little bit, but it typically goes through. It's not going to cause your house to fall down. It's not going to cause, structural damage. But there are actually limits set by the state as to how much vibration we can cause in the industry. And those are, again, monitored. South Florida actually has a unique situation where you can go online and see every single blast and what the vibration level was. So we're, again, working through that. But as the industry people, from Washington, our job really is to educate, right? And to make sure that those communities that do have concerns, they understand that these are we are operating well within the legal limits, and we're doing everything we can to ensure that, again, the communities are safe and that we're able to provide those essential materials to the community that relies on them. So how does this all work? Well, pictured here is a bulk truck. Bulk truck, so this is typical of a mine or quarry site. So in the back there, you have the tank with ammonium nitrate emulsions and the hose coming off, and that's pumped down. The lighter sand piles are what's left of the holes that are drilled. And then you'll fill those holes with the ammonium nitrate emulsions. You have a booster, a detonator, and then you say, yes, we still got fire in the hole. You'll yell fire in the hole, and you'll just do your job. So this is a quarry down in South Florida. So you can, again, see the precision that goes into that, and the timing is just incredible. Here's from a different angle. Pretty impressive. Again, all this material is going out to build the homes, roads, bridges, all the things that we rely on here in the state of Florida. Bright line, skyscrapers. My favorite, I-4. Also known as the parking lot that goes between Orlando and Tampa. And of course, housing. Right? We have to have housing for everyone that lives here, that wants to move here. And you can't do that without all these materials. So the whole reason I'm here at the Economic Club is to talk economics, right? So this year, we were really excited to complete the first ever economic impact study of the commercial explosives industry in the United States. So here's a quick clip of the results, and then we'll talk about them a little bit further in just a minute.
So there you have it. 15,500 direct jobs, 60,000 direct and induced jobs, $7.5 billion the economy, direct impact, excuse me, over 19 billion direct and indirect. That's pretty awesome if you think about it. And that's just the economic impact. Did you see the second part of that? So here's the economic impact. But this is what I think is so critical. $121 billion mining and critical minerals industry. You know, we talk about all the new technology, the green economy. We don't care if it's fossil fuels or green. You need us for everything, right? If you want to make lithium batteries, you got to mine the lithium, and you have to use explosives to do that. You want to build windmills. You use explosives not only to get the material out to build the windmill, you have to use it to prepare the site, because those things go down 20, 30, 40, 50 feet to build the foundations. So again, quarry and construction industry, $2.2 trillion, not possible without explosives. And again, the energy industry, oil and gas, wind, solar, geothermal, you need explosives for all of that. Closer to home here in Florida, you can see we have a direct economic impact of about $132 million. When combined with supplied and induced, that comes out to about $431 million. Jobs, 452 direct industry jobs doesn't seem like a lot, but again, think about what those jobs create. So 1,700 total supplied and induced jobs. These are all things that are so critical to our modern way of life. And I would just venture to guide. I hope that by attending today's luncheon that you learned something. Hopefully it wasn't too boring and too in the weeds, but as you can see, I think you have to understand both the history of where we came from and then to where we are now, to an incredibly safe and secure industry. We actually tried, so we went to to OSHA, and we said, we'd really like to form a safety and health alliance with you guys. They actually came back and said, you're kind of too safe. We don't need one. Imagine that. I mean, that's something I wear with pride, right? To represent an industry that is so safe that OSHA says we don't need a safety and health alliance. Pretty awesome record to stand on. And if you think about the millions of tons of explosives that are consumed each year, rarely do you hear about anything in the news. I will say most of the explosive incidents or things you hear about in the news these days are IEDs. They do not involve commercial explosives. So make sure you read the article. We have to do a lot of correcting. So anyhow, with that, I know we want to have time for Q&A. So thank you all so much for having me today. Again, I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and just an honor to be here with you.
So if you have okay, Larry's already figured it out. The set will have the mic for all questions. What I say, Larry can speak loud. Is it on? It was working. So Larry, if you want to come up, and then Clark can repeat the question while we're working through the mic. Just not to another.
Well, first of all, thank you for an outstanding presentation. I am totally overwhelmed by the level of training that is required to be able to do explosives with that level of precision. I've never seen a bat source in the explosives, but I guess maybe they exist out there. But what kind of training? Is it all engineering, is there certain colleges of study? Is there places that are best at training people to do this kind of work? Where do they learn how to do this?
Yes, thank you for that softball question. I'm actually serious. So, and I can't take credit for this, but just prior to me joining IME in March of 22, they had decided to create a new membership category for academic partners. So we actually have 3 universities, Missouri, University of Science and Technology, Colorado School of Mines, and University of Kentucky, who all offer engineering degrees in either mining or explosives. And so we're hoping to grow that program to also welcome in some of our national labs that, you know, Sandia, Los Alamos, all those labs you've probably heard of. They do a lot of work still in explosives. And so it's not just on the R&D side, it's also on the talent pipeline. You know, finding kids to get into explosives. I tell this story. We have a gentleman on staff who is probably one of the most renowned experts in commercial explosives. And his mother tells this story. He was either going to jail or to college, and he ended up getting in the right direction. So
I think eventually, well, we got one facility working there, so created a dynamite.
yes. Yep.
So presuming that it means somebody had the flags and they needed, is it all the barriers or expanding our gas?
It is. Specifically with TNT and even HMX RDX, the higher explosives, the waste streams that come off of the manufacturing of these products it's nasty stuff. It's not a secret. So much so that EPA essentially has a memo out there that says you'll never build another TNT plant in the United States until you figure out how to deal with what's called red water. But the unfortunate result of that is we are reliant. So globally, TNT, the big producers are Ukraine, take that off the bat, Poland, which we rely heavily on, Turkey, we're starting to get some from there just because it's one of the only sources, and then China, Russia, and a little bit out of South Korea. So you could probably take half of those suppliers off the top, right? And we're left with scrap. So we're hoping, again, you know, DoD has funding. They're in the process of, they call it a sources sought that's since been closed. So they're reviewing the proposals, and we're hoping that they do come back with an award to build a new plant in the United States. But again, it's DoD can go as far as they can. It's still going to have to go through the environmental review process. So that will be something that we will definitely be engaged on.
Final question. How does IME help the state of Florida if and when that process goes through, get that plant or get that facility?
Well, first you have to be an IME member. Now, in all seriousness, I think the plant west. I mentioned there's one HMX RDX plant, and it's in Kingsport, Tennessee. Again, I'm not telling you anything you can't look up online. There is a strong likelihood that it ends up there just because they've already gone through the permitting for those other plants. But I do know of other companies, particular members, that would be very interested in constructing the plant. But again, you know, it's $500 million in funding, which is probably about a third of what you need to actually build a plant. So you're going to have to come up with some private capital. And the thing is, the military, this has been an interesting learning experience for me, not having worked much in the DoD space. They actually do have to go through a cost benefit analysis for their sources or suppliers. Right. So what they're thinking about is, yes, right now there are a lot of conflicts going on, and all of the money that's being spent on Ukraine, for example, right? Most of that money is actually going to restock our own supplies. Ukraine's getting our leftovers. That's not, it's reported here and there, but Ukraine is getting basically our old supplies. And then in turn, we are developing, manufacturing new stuff. It's actually been pretty good for both the commercial and the defense side. But DoD is looking at this as, yes, there's current conflicts going on, but what do we think the market's going to look like long term for these materials? Because we can't build a TNT plant and then not have a need for it. That's not a good use of taxpayer dollars, right? So they're looking at us to say, well, how much would your industry be willing to commit to utilizing? So it's that partnership and that transfer of information. But frankly, we weren't even on their map until we reached out back in February. So another example of why we are where we are.
Any other questions? One over here.
So you mentioned, you explain what's the difference between dynamite and TNT and mutuates? What's their use?
Sure. So dynamite it's more of a product, right? It's more of a finished product. I mean, they refer to dynamite as a stick of dynamite, and it's no longer, I guess it used to be in red tubes. They now use yellow. Again, there's only one company. You can go online and look it up. It's Dyno Nobel in Missouri. They still make dynamite just because of all the inventions of these new, safer products. It's just not used as much. It's an incredibly powerful tool, but mostly used in really hard rock situations. But in terms of the difference between the two, it's a different chemical composition. TNT is actually used not exclusively as an explosive per se in the commercial industry, but an ingredient. So those boosters that I was showing you, those boosters will have, TNT, PTN, some type of high explosive in them, but it's not used as a raw product in and of itself. It's kind of interesting. It's like a yellow, flaky, kind of looks like cornflakes. Look at our military guys over here. This is about the best way to describe it. So hopefully did that help? Okay.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Clark. Thank you for sharing your insights. You were pretty excited about certain topics that you were going through. I asked him when we were prepping for this if he liked explosive or fireworks as a kid. He assured me he was a normal kid, and he's, but anyway, we appreciated all that you've shared with us today, and we want you to take this token of appreciation for spending time. We will see you guys on July 23rd at the FSU Alumni Center. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.